Welcome to Lantern Voices, a podcast by Lantern Publishing and Media.
Hello, Lantern Voices listeners. Welcome to our second episode of Season 2. I am Louisa, and I'll be your host for today's episode. The book we're going to feature in this episode is a memoir. Where are all my memoir lovers out there? I feel like this is a genre that some people are absolute fans of, and honestly, I get it. It's like getting all the good gossip straight from the source. The memoir we're going to talk about today is called Life of Pei, The Battle for Compassion by Pei Feng Su. Pei is the founder of ACTAsia, a charitable organization that promotes kindness, compassion through educational initiatives in Asia. And she's not the only one that will be joining me later today. Brian Normoyle, president and publisher of Lantern Publishing and Media, will be here with us for this episode. As somebody who's a longtime vegan activist himself, Brian brought to the conversation aspects of the daily life of activists and the challenges they face, and he and Pei brought up important insights together. If this is your first episode, here's a quick rundown about how the show works. We are a podcast connected to the publisher Lantern Publishing and Media, an independent, nonprofit organization based in Woodstock, New York. We dedicate our works to books that promote compassion, kindness, and veganism. Sounds interesting, right? Don't forget to stay until the very end of this episode to get our special 25% off discount coupon that you can use to purchase any of the books ever featured here on Lantern Voices on our ebook store. So now, without further ado, let's welcome Pei Feng Su to our podcast. Hey, welcome to Lantern Voices. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on this podcast.
Thank you very much for giving us a little bit of your time and coming here to chat about your book, Life of Pei. And Brian, you're also here with us today. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. I am going to jump right into our first question to be mindful of our time. I want to start off by saying that writing a memoir is no easy feat. You have to condense your whole life into 200 or 300 pages. I want to know, how did you decide which stories made into the book and which ones had to stay out?
I didn't even think about that until reading your questions. I think to decide what to stay in or take out, I think it all depends on why I want to write this book. I always think, we have to go back to the beginning, the purpose. And I think the purpose of the book really is not about how fantastic I am, how great job I'm doing. I think it's really, I want to leave the book as a legacy. And I think in the several time in our discussion with, animal advocacy movement, or even the charity sector or NGO movement, the inner change, sector, I feel a lot of time we're not looking at the issue from historical perspective. We very often unconsciously or unintentionally, we just reinvented the wheel. And we should really look at it, what it has worked, what it hasn't worked, and then to come up with a better solution to create that change. And I hope through my book, I think I'm in some way, is unique. I'm very lucky I was able to work on the grassroots level in Asia, and I also work in, internationally with, leading organization with a very significant, movement leader. And I was be able to see the difference in terms of culture, politics, political context, and social, environment as well. So I think the book really is to use my experience, can be used as a mirror or used as a guidance for someone they maybe in a similar situation seek for the change. And I think is using that as a criteria really is then what is making people more can be learned or connected in a way.
And I think that it definitely reaches that goal. As I was reading, one of the chapters that caught my eyes most was the one you talk about how veterinarians in Taiwan were not prepared to deal with companion animals, and they were dealing with farm animals in sense of exploitation mostly. I have a very close friend of mine who's a veterinarian, and we were just chatting about this recently about how to have a more compassionate approach towards animals. So I was like, you need to read this chapter specifically because there's so much about the learning process and the learning curve that they had to have. So I think, yeah, it's amazing. And I felt inspired and she felt inspired. So I definitely think that you got there with your book, at least with us two readers.
Thank you.
Were there any stories, though, that had to stay out and maybe given an opportunity to have a revised edition, or if you ever want to reassess this book, that you would like to add them? Maybe it hadn't happened by the time that you got it published, or maybe because they just had to stay out?
Yeah, I think thank you for your question. I think first of all, I think is when I finished that book, one idea come up quite strongly. It was at the time I almost want to write another book. Um, the idea was I feel through my journey I connected with so many amazing activists on the ground in Asia. And then through that, what I learned from them or what I have told them in a way. So I feel like there's still a lot of unsung heroes. And they are in, for example, I know this couple in Bali. And I met both of them when they were university. So I trained them how to do investigation. I was working with them on the turtle projects. At the time, Bali was, they kill lots of turtles for as a satay, barbecue and satay, and then the eggs will be eaten. So now they have spent probably more than 20 years to working with a community to preserve, when a sea turtle come to nesting, they preserve the egg, they make sure the local community stop to see this sea turtle as, as a source of protein, as a satay meat. So I think even with the people like that, we actually connect with each other. Now these couples they have son, their son is 15. And they gave my book to the son to read. And the son say, "Oh, I want to be like Pei when I grow up." And I feel a lot, the book was kind of evolved me to bring back the work I have done. But also I feel there was some people there, I haven't been able to talk more about them, how they work with them. And their story is, just amazing. There are people in Malaysia, there's people in Sri Lanka, in India. So I think that was part of more of who I have worked together, and they have been amazing. That's one part. There's the other part I felt when I do this work now, animal advocacy, we, including people like Brian, we started. There is no guidebook. There is no business. Like people doing business, you have a business management, tell you how do you do the management, how do you grow your organization, how do you marketing, sales. You can even go to university, so do that. When I started, learn everything on the job. I think I was one very curious, very, interesting how the West have done, the similar type of work, for so long, come to ACTAsia in Europe, in America. I remember I went to see the organization. I think it's called IHS. IS was International Animal Rights. I think when I saw the lady, she was in early 1990s, and she was about over 70, but I was amazed, this old lady, she's already done animal rights movement for so long. I was just a beginner. So I we learned the hard way. That's what I'm trying to say. We learn on the job. We learn how to tackle the issue very, very organic way. Of course, now the movement has more, in particular in last 5 years, you have more, capacity building, more movement building, and to enable more people work on advocacy as a career. I think when I was, gone back to that, still, I think the part is leadership. How to be the leader to conduct the issues, how to be leader to deal with your day-to-day challenges, and especially you're female. The female challenge is even another layer. And I felt that was the part I wasn't be able to talk more in the book. Like last year, I was talking about leadership, changing mind and heart in India. And I do, people ask me, say, one thing after the talk was, how could I be so confident? And I say, wow, I was never a confident person. I actually is a very insecure person because of my, childhood, I grew up, but I made myself in a way. But, and so come back to you, I'm sorry, I think it's a very lengthy answer. What I'm trying to say, that female leadership, the leadership with the animal advocacy movement, this I think is very seldom discussed in that more holistic way. And I think that's what probably I feel if I was going to write more, I think that's what I would really want to address more. Like especially if you're running the charity is not the size of, human world or the mercy animals. You run the size of, not tiny, but you probably small, medium sized organization. The challenge itself is, every day it's just even just IT, even just how you deal with AI. You think you can learn, but you spread very thin. So a lot of challenge, I still think if we can discuss more, we will be able to, learn from each other in that extent. And I think this type of talk maybe again more in the global north, in the developed country like America or Europe. And I think in Asia or more developing country, I think it's still quite rare to discuss about that. And people just don't understand the challenge we are facing, how enormous and, how we, to be able to overcome. I think is very under discussed and understood as well.
Lantern Publishing and Media is a book publisher devoted to animal rights. You can keep up with all the news about our latest books, get tips on veganism, inspirational quotes, and much more by following us on social media. We are at Lantern PM on Instagram and Blue Sky, at Lantern PM Official on TikTok, and Lantern Publishing and Media on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Consider giving us a follow if you are on any of the social media channels. It really helps us grow our community and reach more people, sharing your message with the world. All the links are on the episode description.
If I may, at what point in your amazing career did you think, okay, I need to reach out past Asia, so to speak, and try to speak to a more global audience? When did that happen?
I think for me it's COVID. The
Oh,
COVID really kind of like shaped me because I think before COVID I was, still more active traveling, you go to knock the door, you can grab any opportunity you can. And I think COVID was one of the, factor force us to say, you stay put, you can't do anything, you can't go out, you can't do, the basic thing we were supposed to do. And I think at that time I would think, oh my God, how am I going to talk to the people I want to talk to in the past? I can, I used to think I'm like 1970, the salesperson. You always have big brief suitcase. I will always carry a suitcase traveling around the world and showcase our work, with a brochure, with a print work, with a PowerPoint. And COVID stopped that. And so I have to think about what is the best way to reach the audience and understand what I'm thinking, what my approach, it is, why I believe, education is the key to change the mind and hearts in the generations is to come. The attitude towards animal, what I feel there was lack of, the foundation, how do I address in the root cause? And I think that it was the way I feel, right, that's put the effort, time to, enable the book to continue my belief.
There's a lot of groundbreaking in everything that you did, and it is definitely inspiring and everything else. What I love to see in your answer right now and in your book was how much collaboration there was. You realizing what you have to offer and you realizing what you lack and then exchanging that with other like-minded people. Maybe before COVID, it was easier to do that in person or bringing people over, going places and things like that. Now we're more used to the digital side of things. It is still important and it's still effective, and perhaps more so because then you don't have the carbon footprint issues. You don't have to think too much about money because Zoom, it's cheaper than just like paying for a flight or something like that. I think advantages and disadvantages.
Definitely.
My next question is something that you also mentioned in your book that kind of was the kickstart in a way for you seeing nature and animals in a different perspective from the one you were raised, is your training to be a Buddhist monk and how you almost became one. Do you feel like your training still helps you to this day, still inspire you to this day? I imagine it will always be part of who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I did a radio interview just about 2 weeks ago. The interviewer asked me exactly the same question, and I think for me, Buddhism's principle and teaching, one of the guiding principle is all living creature are equal, and I think that's what the fundamental make me through. What I'm doing is with that belief, with that, faith to guide you through, especially when the job is tough. The if you don't have a faith, is that faith, it doesn't have to be just religion. I always think, I already say, after so long, over 30 years, you think, oh my God, why is not getting easier? The challenge actually in today's world is more. In the past, you deal with the animal issues, you deal with the industry, the exploiter, you deal with organizational issue. Now you have the issue is the IT, the AI. Everything it was become. I don't really think the world is easier at all, despite all the advantage in terms of technology in some degree, but I don't feel from running an organization was easier. And without a faith, it's hard to sustain, very hard to sustain. And so one thing is the Buddhism sense is core teaching is, all living creatures are equal. That's number one. Number two, that one of the things very important to me is the Buddhism teaching is talking about cause and effect. And they, in the teaching would say, there was never one single factors to make certain things. So if you look at okay, this is the animals are, for example, companion animal are abused. And then, like you said, the vets are not doing a job. So many people say, why do you do vet training? And I said, because they are the key stakeholder. If you want to, defense for animal, your best companion, your best ally, it should be vets. If all the vets are distant from you, they should, you are not making your woman bigger. But then they say, but shouldn't vets to be, already love animal, how to want to treat animal? I say, not necessary. For them, there's a job or that's the subject. They can't become, a doctor, or they can't get into other university course, so they become a vet. So I think it's very different. Again, social, political, context is very different. So it's in Buddhism teaching is you never say because of A you become B. It's not as simple like that. It's always various factors. And also teaching one very important is nothing is permanent. like I use the compass of what does that mean? Nothing permanent. I say, okay, this is a mark. Okay. The mark we call mark. If the mark drop on the floor, shattered, you won't call it mark, right? The concept change. So nothing is permanent. That why is flawed. And you really, when you look at these things, when you're dealing with a challenge, they give you the wisdom or intelligence how you dissect your challenges. Otherwise, I feel like it's very easy you go mad. It's so many things you can't reason. You can't reason in the ways how could someone doing such a hideous and cruel thing to this living creature? So you have to really prepare yourself mentally strong, using, your belief to face it, the challenge you are facing, I think. So I think the one other thing I feel very important in Buddhism teaching is it's a lonely job. It's a very lonely job, lonely journey. You're not only lonely because it's not many of us doing this job, but once you become a leader, it's even worse. I think Buddhism teaching, one of them is solitary. You are comfortable with yourself. You can look inner self, be in peace with yourself. And I think that is a very important teaching to enable me to, continue to do what I'm doing.
You touch on some very important aspects that other authors have brought in conversation in this podcast that is about the mental health of the activist and how to keep your mind steady while you see atrocity after atrocity in life. So it's interesting to see how we all try to find something that is close to us in our life that brings this strength. In your case,
Yeah.
the Buddhist teachings and some other folks mention community. Other folks mention the work the sanctuaries do. Usually, folks that work for sanctuaries. So it's diverse where we can find this will to keep going.
Many of us has experienced trauma through when we see the horrendous case, and you go through PTSD. You probably never have the proper, the therapy. Your mental health. You could seek tools and method to help. However, I think with the faith in the Buddhism, particularly, is guiding you through the right direction and guiding principle when you even have the energy and strength to look for the tool or method to solve the problems. And I think that is very important because if you don't have the thought or idea to help you bounce back, sometimes it's like spiral case. And I can tell you, in my over 30 years of experience, sometimes you're in a very dark place. Sometimes, you will be, you know, so upset and you can't, some days I don't want to get up, I just feel like I can't face it. And then you have to say, okay, let it be. Sometimes if you are used to be like, say, no, you whip yourself to get up, you whip yourself up to even doesn't matter how much you injure, you wounded, you still carry on in the battlefield. That's why we said the battle for compassion. You sometimes do not allow yourself to be compassionate to yourself. And I think that's what combative Buddhism teaching compassion is very important. And I learned through my illness, I learned through writing this book, I actually say, wasn't very compassionate to myself. You were all given out, but you not look inward. So again, I think a lot of the teaching within Buddhism is give me more of the support and direct, and you really truly accept it. I think Brian asked me, say, when do I think I want to go more audience? I think I'm asking myself, am I able to carry on? Can I carry on to do what I'm doing? Can I carry on with doing this job? Has a team of the people behind me, team of the people rely on me? This is a lot of, responsibility you are taking, uh, with me, every single day. So that, you know, in that sense, I feel you have to have true faith to believe. So I think in my book, when I was having doing my cancer treatment, I really accepted, say, this just, it was never a job, but it really are more clear to me. This is, I accept, I used to say, well, why so hard? But I actually more accepted this is, I was lucky. I'm very lucky to be given to this task from either Buddha or someone up there to say, I think it's almost like the life mission, this is what I believe I can do.
What I'm hearing, it sounds to me like you find therapy and healing in doing, and it's based in your faith. So, quite frankly, you stay busy. You don't have time to worry about other things. You worry about what's focused on your life, your mission, the animals, and I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. But I think you're absolutely right, is doing what I'm doing is part of practice in Buddhism as well. Because one of Buddhism is Bodhisattva, is one of the path is you want to pass on the compassion teaching. You're doing all your starting point was the compassionate, concept, and you want to spread idea of compassions. And I think that combined very well with what I'm doing through ACTAsia, or through, the work we're doing for animals. And the other thing what I think is really important is I have changed, particularly in last 15 years, is we animal people or the sector, we must balance, is bring in people in and bring environment in. We are, because there's so many problem and so many work there and charity are talking about human issues. So when we work on animal issue, we almost exclude people. I don't know, do you want me? So we're not talking about people into the animal issue. So, but what I have tried really hard, particularly in last 15 years, is saying, no, it's animal, people, environment. This is interconnected. If we single one out, it's not going to work. But if you, in particular in Asia, if you only just talk about animal, people are just like, yeah. They not paying attention, or they it's not that stronger connection. So to me, I think we should not just focus on, the issue just on human, but same as when we focus on animal issue, we also need to think about what is a wider contact with people, take into part. That's why I think a lot of my work is to building a platform to allow the people care about animal, and then to link with the people care about environment, people care about people. We were saying, the people, they care about, they might care about animals, but if you say, do you care about next generation? Do you want your children to have a future to live? I say, yes, of course. Then I'll say, okay, you cannot, then if that is the fundamental your position, you can't ignore animal issues, because without animal, we're not going to be able to continue to live, to be healthy and sustainable. So I think it's using the right narrative. To me, that's very important. And it's very, very difficult once you used to some sort of discourse or theory of change, and to be brave enough to not accept it, that doctoral is and or theory or terminology just in another country. I think that's where another pitfall as well. So for example, I don't want to talk about veganism in Asia context. I don't talk about animal liberation. I don't even talk about animal rights. But it doesn't mean you're not talking about the importance of rights. But if you talk about animal rights, they just don't understand. But if you talk about animal from a different way to say about their compassion, empathy, care. You got to accept it. So you have to be brave enough, and also you need to think more, like I say, inner yourself. How do I get what I want to get, and to change the people's their way of behavior, or the way they behave, or their belief as well, because their belief is based on that social value or society brought to them. And so what I'm trying to say is lots of what we do is looks simple, but it's far more complex in a way. And for me, is, even people like Brian, we've been in movement for a long time, and we should be able to be brave enough and to be smart enough in a way as well to make ourselves position in more mainstream. I always say in many podcasts, I always say to them, since about 10 years ago, I used to think, oh, we're a minority. And I say, hang on a minute. Actually, we're so mainstream. We care about environment, we care about climate change, we care about animal issues, we care about sustainability. How can I be not mainstream? Why do we isolate ourselves, think we are extreme? Wrong. But then, if you think yourself, you position yourself, it changes where you start. I think a lot of time is where you start that is very important.
It is never too late or too early to start learning about animal rights. If you go to our website, you'll find a variety of books, ebooks, and even picture books for the little ones about animal rights and veganism. Go to lanternpm.org and check it out. And we've been talking a lot about ACTAsia and the work that you're doing. Are there any achievements that you're proudest of today, or that you're happiest about what it had accomplished?
This is amazing year. 2026 is ACTAsia's 20 years anniversary. I still don't believe it's 20 years when I started today. And I was exchanging with one of very, experienced animal advocates as well. And he wrote to me, he said, well, bravo to, what we have achieved. We all know starting something is not easy, but it's not that difficult in some way. It's to sustain it, to continue, to thrive, to grow. After 20 years, I think that's where it's tough, where it's a challenge. So to be able to stand still, to work in the country or region is not the easiest place because of authoritarianism, because of lots of, political restrictions, and to reach 20 years for, animal issue. And also we are the only one organization is focused on education to, change the mind and heart of the next generation through education, and bring animal people and environment into, our movement. And as a change movement, I think we are, very few. And to be able to do this, I think is 20 years is, to me, is I almost feel I haven't let myself down in some way. Sometimes especially with women, I think you're always quite critical of yourself. And so I feel, I always think, am I being wasting my time, my family's time because they support me? Have I been wasted the donors, people support our work, donate to us? Have I been wasting their resources? I strongly believe I'm not just doing the work because what will get us the most donation. If I want to do that, I think I won't feel, probably ACTAsia won't be still in such a way, still tough in a way. So you truly believe what we do are create the best change, best opportunity for the voice of voiceless.
Congratulations on those 20 years. Congratulations on all the work.
Thank you.
Are there any current projects that ACTAsia is working on, or that you dream for the next 20 years?
I think my number one dream is make ACTAsia more sustainable. I think as a leader, I the person started the organization from nothing and to build for 20 years. I feel the organization should be more sustainable in terms of our resources, in terms of, the way we run. It's no longer just doing a good job because we won so many awards. Our work is highly recognized, but it's not easy in the way we have enough of, we don't hardly have any reserve. We have enough funding but that things should be come up with. I hope it will be more enables more sustainably. So we are not hand to mouth all the time. That's one thing. And second thing, I think I'm very proud of ACTAsia is from 2022. We have worked with 9 countries in Asia, particularly we call Compassion Choice Network. So we handpick the organization in Asia and to tackle the factory farming issues, through promoting sustainable lifestyle, sustainable plant-based lifestyle. And this is growing, every year. I think that this is through the Compassion Choice Network, we are launching a campaign called Plan Forward every year. The Plan Forward is for more Asian to understand what is plant-based lifestyle through food, clothing, living, and travel. When you go travel, don't go to see monkey show. Don't go to see, this show was performed by wildlife, or don't go swim with dolphin because that was not nature. So a lot of things is, I think, the plant-based diet or plant-based lifestyle, I don't always believe you have to start it with food. Again, that's another concept I did not always agree. I think in America, in Europe, there's a lot of focus on diet change, and food as a beginning to stop the exploited farm animal issues. But I feel there should be a different way to allow the starting point. Like, for example, in China, we've chosen to start it for free because that could be easier than the clothing, easier can tackle food issue because the Chinese love food. Asian is a food country. And to always go into when there's no animal welfare understanding, no right understanding to tackle their food, you almost like we in Chinese saying we said is 以卵击石. I mean, you use your egg to throw to the storm. You're very vulnerable. So you need to be smart. I think a lot of people know Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is his war strategy. Sun Tzu is always talking about how you only have you are only 4 grams. How do you use that 4 grams of strength to lift a stone 1,000 kilos? So how do you use physics? How do you use strategy? Although you will not directly face the enemy, but you use the right way to find that tipping point, to find that weak spot, and you get through it. A lot of time when I was explaining to people how hard for us to work on animal issue in Asia, I always say to the people, close your eyes, think about you working in concrete. And you think you're throwing the seeds. It's not going to grow. But what we have tried, we might find a crack. We get the seeds in, the seeds start to look, they can be the seeds can go in a small plant and grass. And then one day, maybe some people will say, okay, we make it a bigger lawn. We crack the concrete. So the right elements have to come back to the Buddhism. The elements, cause and effect. The elements have to come. And I hope when I die in my lifetime, I always joke, I always say, I hope we have more animal groups like PETA, like Human World, like Mercy of Animals. They can go to, shaking the banner, placard. But that time, I might not be able to see it in my lifetime in China. But I believe whatever we're doing, we are paving the path. That's how the world has evolved. Look at my daughter have never seen fax machine, but used to have a fax machine. They never see cassette, isn't it? Things will come, but we are the pioneer. We are the one paving the path, working the path. And, thank you for Lantern, and the book has enabled me to start to reach more people to understand the concepts, what we are, my personal story, to take on that journey to understand more of what the people like me, when we walk on the ground, how our challenge we are facing, what is the reality we live in.
It's an honor to be your publisher, Pei. It really is.
I was listening to it all and thinking about what you said and thinking about your daughter doesn't know what a fax machine is and all that. I was having this conversation. I saw the fax machine, but I was having a similar conversation with my family the other day, and I was trying to understand how record players work because I was born in the time of CDs. So when you talk about like that and talk about how fast technology in the world is changing, it is also possible to imagine a better world and not just a world where everything is going to get worse and worse. I imagine how great it must be to have the 9 organizations that you selected to partner with. Because when you started, I don't think there were 9 organizations to partner with. So it shows that it is working, that you're finding the path.
Yeah. But I think I want to use this opportunity to really remind people, change take time.
Yeah.
Change really take time. And it's not going to fix overnight. And sometimes that change, it will accumulate it, but it may not be from here to here straight away. Sometimes you accumulated that energy, the power and the strength, and then one day the peak time will come. And I think we need to remember that. But it's quite hard to communicate because everyone, like now, people don't have attention span. People want everything to be fast. It's almost very hard to explain, why you have to go back to the ground level and work with people and teach them, enable them to see what can be changed, how change can be created. Like the last week, someone asked me, say, "Oh, there's a fur exhibition. Are you going to protest in Hong Kong?" I say, "No. I'm not saying protest is bad, but I'm saying I done that in first 20 years of my movement. I don't believe that is the most effective way I want to spend. I feel a lot of time that has to go back to ground level when people don't even know. Even we have worked on this issue for 10 years, we still have a problem is a lot of audience and public, they don't understand what is fur. They can't see the difference between fur and leather because of the language, and they don't know where the fur come from. So when they install, like I say, if you see the ground zero, these people are not cruel because they are intrinsic cruel. They are just ignorant. They don't understand. They haven't been told. They haven't had the place to nurture that empathy, to allow them to learn animal are not machine. They are sentience. We have to go back a bit to where it should be before we drum on what's wrong. I'm not saying we are not saying what's wrong. I'm saying sometimes just keep telling people this is wrong. You must go back to the foundation. Then we can resolve it. Otherwise, we'll just scrap the surface.
Would you like to be one of the first to know about Lantern books, author events, and more? Then sign up for our newsletter. We deliver it only once a month, so you don't have to worry about overflowing your inbox with emails. We curate our newsletter with the latest Lantern news, but we also try to add information about partner organizations. That way, you can get to know about a new sanctuary or other activist organization every month. Go to the link on the episode description to know more.
Pei and Louisa, I don't know if you're familiar with Bill McKibben. He is the environmentalist based in America, an activist and educator, and he's written over 20 books, and he's very well known. But he created an organization recently called the Third Act, and the Third Act is for older folks to get involved in some capacity. And it's got now thousands of members. Hey, it sounds to me like you've just created your own third act.
Yes, I do. I do. Because that platform or that third act, that's why I talk to the business. Doesn't matter they like animal, hate animal. I find a language to communicate with them. You find a common theme, and for example, through our fur issues, we work with the people, they they care. They care about next generation. They want to be more sustainable. When I say, okay, first thing, stop using fur, they say, really? How? Now we have a people, they're selling materials. They don't want to sell fur as a material. Then I introduce them to the designing company, the brands, say they got a lot of material you might be able to use. Then you get the academic, you get media. So you can bring this together. And that is how, because we are create that change movement together. You look at all different stakeholders. You look at who are you, the best influence you can work. Of course, there is a change theory in the social movement, etc. There is a method we can follow. However, how do we apply all the theory or knowledge into where we're working? I think that's the key. Go back to, you say, what do I want to write if there's a chapter? I was saying, as a leader, how do you look beyond what you're doing? Like in business sense, they always have, I remember there was an organization called Vinstead. It basically was, they are just collecting all the CEO together or company leader together. And they're talking about what's your charity, what's your problem, what's your, challenge. And you learn from each other in that way. We don't have that. We always so isolated. So I think what I'm trying to say is we must look beyond what we're doing. It doesn't matter how busy we are. And we really need to reposition ourselves, our movement. And like I said, I feel, and that helped me to change. I was no longer feel isolated in a way. When we talk about the issue, you find a way, you find a new ally. They understand your ethos and then your strategy. But if you have the right mindset, if you have right, approach, the change will come. But as long as you give time. My biggest challenge is a lot of time I felt I was talking to founders or partner, they want quick fix. And I kept saying, I want quick fix too. But in general, they can't fix. That is just only plaster. And we have plastering for so long, from all the human conflict for the violence to towards each other, to animals, to and to the destroy the environment. So a lot of this change, I don't really think you can find quick fix. Some of us must want to go to fundamentally to create that long lasting change.
We're on the same page on that, my friend. So.
And on that note, what is activism for you? What does it represent in your life?
Well, like Brian said, my activism is the practice of my religion, my faith. And I think activism is living with you, how you see things, how you make that informed decision. It's impossible. Like people say, how do you make it no harm? I just say that's impossible unless you don't consume. You create harm every single day. Yeah. So but then you drive your mad. So for example, if you talk about sustainable fashion, you kind of say, okay, I can't buy these, I can't buy these, I can't buy these. But then you can't afford to buy, what they call sustainable as well. So there's so many dynamics in the real life. The activism to me is not just a moral principle. It's not something you put on your mental piece to say this is how you want to live. I think activism is how do you practice through every day. You do your best. You do all in a way is you are creating less harm. Like I said, it's impossible to be no harm. Everything we do have an environmental impact. Everything we have an impact in people and in animals. However, how do we sustain that, and how the activism is practiced through, our work? I think I've been very lucky. I able to create ACTAsia to do the job is what I truly believe. So my activism is, day in and day out. But not many people like that. Then you still can practice your activism is practice through your everyday of life. Sometimes I feel the activists divided the bit. So you feel like, there's two people. Part of it is your real job, your real life, and the other one's activism. I think that is all blend into one. And I always say to everyone can create change. Everyone create a change. Even you use one bottle of less plastic, one less, or piece of garment or clothes, you're making that change. So how to see activism is not just seeing the problem. Sometimes if you see problem after problem, it's very depressing. You turn around, like today, the news will say, that Antarctica temperature is rising, so the penguin is, started to, breed earlier, 10 days to 10 days to 20 days. But what does that mean to most of people? For most of people, the penguin is so far away from my real life when I don't have money put on my table, So I think we must say, that is about waste of life. If the penguins, they started to have offspring earlier, then we're competing with all the animals, the nature we're going to change. But for people that is so far away, the challenge, the issue, the scientists, media, or animals issue so far away from real life. And we must bring that back to the real life. Activism is every day of life. You and I can create that change. I say that to when I was speaking publicly in Asia, I say every day, if you do something good, do something you feel is making that informed choice. A lot of time, we are making the choice, we don't even think about it. We just do it. Because the shops say buy, buy, buy. The television, the media, we consume so much. Why? How? So activism is what you believe and what you can practice. It's not just a belief. It's something we can all do about it, and you feel great.
Mm-hmm. As we're approaching the end of our episode, I would like to open up the floor to you and your current projects, events, maybe actions that you're taking that you want to let our listeners know. This is a space for anything that's happening this semester or this year that you would like our listeners to know about or to join in. So if there's any project going on, the floor is all yours.
Help me to, support ACTAsia. It's our 20 years anniversary. 20 years a milestone. It's helping us to get more people know about ACTAsia, introduce a book to more people. I still think is amazing legacy I want to produce to pass on. Thank you to Lenton again, to Brian, and I think more people I hope will be able to learn to help them, to sustain. Sometimes in activism you have lots of doubt. You're not sure. You question yourself. So we lost talents. We lost people in our movement. And I hope the book will motivate you to, continue. And if you have the book, recommend to more people, ask people to write reviews, share with me about what you think of when you read the book. And I think to give me the feedback of what do you think of the book is, to me, is very important because it's like I say, it's a very lonely job. Sometimes you don't know, although I believe, what I'm doing, but it's still good to hear what other people think. So, there's many ways you can help.
Thank you. And the best way to support ACTAsia's work and to reach out is via the website?
Yes.
All right. I'll make sure to add that to the description, the podcast description, so folks know where to go.
Yeah.
And thank you very much once again for being here with us, for giving us a little bit of your time. Thank you, Brian, as well, for being here and sharing this moment with us, adding your knowledge and your comments.
Thank you.
Right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us at Lantern Voices this month. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Pei Feng Su. And if like me, you're also inspired by her life and work, you should definitely read the entire book, Life of Pei. It is available everywhere you buy books. But if you like a special price, head over to lanternpm.org, click on our ebook store on the menu on the top of the screen, then go to Feature in Our Podcast. You'll find over there all the books that were ever featured here on Lantern Voices, Season 1 or Season 2, including some spoilers on what's coming up in the following months. You can select any of the books or more titles if you like, and on checkout, use the coupon Lantern Voices 25. That is Lantern Voices like your podcast, and the numbers 2 and 5, all together, no spaces. Thank you for staying with us until the very end, and we'll see you again next month when we have another conversation with another great Lantern author. We'll be talking about his latest book, but he has already published with us 3 times in the past. Any ideas who he might be? Take care, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Bye!